Hello everybody, my name is Ethan. Welcome to another episode of C#, learning C# on this channel. Why are you looking away? Thank you, DMX Monkey, for joining us today. In the previous episode, we covered arrays. We did the introduction to arrays, which are lists, if you're familiar with them in Python. If not, they are very similar to a grouping of items that we want to iterate over, right? So we are going to iterate over them using loops. So that is what we are going to cover today. Arrays and loops are part of their own little subsection of the syllabus here. Last time, again, we finished arrays. This time we are going to finish loops. Oh, it's gonna take me back to arrays. Gosh darn it, that's not what I wanted to do. It's okay though, we can go back to loops because we finished arrays already. We're good with arrays. Okay, I think I just have to back up one sec. Introduction to loops. Imagine you're building a video game, and in this game you want to add 15 aliens to the screen. How do we tell the computer to do this? Create a variable and call the method 15 times. We could write it out, add alien, add alien, add alien, add alien, right? We'll spare you the rest. This approach takes a long time and can easily lead to mistakes. Instead, let's give the instructions once and tell the computer how many times to repeat them. So for int I equals 0, I less than 15, I plus plus, add alien. Loops are structures that we can use to repeat instructions until a certain condition is met. That condition could be a change in state, an end of a list, or a number. When we see a repetition in our code, it's a good sign that we should probably use a loop. By not writing out instructions multiple times, we reduce the chance for errors and save ourselves some time. There are several kinds of loops that we can use depending on the situation. This lesson will cover while loops, do while loops, for loops, and for each loops. So let's try out this little fun graphic again. Every time we start a new little chapter, we like to have a fun graphic here. So let's click start. We're going to play drum. I didn't hear it, but I assume that's what it does. We're going to play hand clap, clap. Has the loop run 4 times? Nope. So we're going to play drum and play hand clap. Boom, boom, tsh, boom, boom, tsh, boom, oop. And now we can click end, right? Because we played it 4 times and now we can click end. Cool. While loop. Loops are used to repeat a set of instructions based on a set of conditions. If this makes you think of conditional statements, you're not wrong. The while loop looks very similar to an if statement. Just like an if statement, it executes the code inside it if the condition, a statement that evaluates to a Boolean value, is true. So while condition, statement. However, unlike an if statement that runs once, a while loop will continue to execute the code inside of it over and over again while the condition is true. The computer is constantly checking to see if the condition is satisfied. For this reason, while loops are useful when you know what point a program should stop, rather than a number of times it should repeat. In your video game, you want the player to rise up in the air as long as the user is pressing the space bar. While space bar is equal to down, rise up. In this example, while the space bar is equal to down, the character will keep rising on the screen. It will exit the while loop once the user releases the space bar, and then the rest of the program will continue. While loops can get dangerous because they depend on the condition to, at some point, return false. What if we never take our finger off the space bar? Sounds ridiculous, but theoretically, the program could and would run forever. This is known as an infinite loop. If you get stuck in an infinite loop while on Codecademy, you can reload the page to stop it. Okay, you're really trying to step up your inbox 0 game and want to build a tool that can help you get there. For your first prototype, you're going to delete all the emails. Write a while loop that checks if there are any emails in your inbox. If there are still emails, decrease the number of emails by 1 until there are no emails left. If the test runs infinitely, you probably ran into an infinite loop. Refresh the page and make sure your loop is able to terminate. So we'll create a while loop by saying while int our while emails is greater than 0. We'll open that loop up, and inside the loop we'll say emails minus minus. If you remember in the previous lesson, we learned that minus minus would subtract 1 from a variable, and so plus plus does the opposite. It'll add 1 to the variable. So let's see if that works. It's a little hard to tell what's happening in our program. So within the loop, have it print a message that it's deleting an email to see how many emails are left. So in here, we're going to do our command console.writeLine, deleting, deleted one email. When your inbox reaches 0, have your program print out inbox 0 achieved or some other congratulatory message. So we just exit this loop here. We'll do a console.write, inbox 0 achieved. Oops. Let's see if that works. Looks like it wants me to use console.writeLine and not console.write, even though it does the exact same thing, sort of, and boom. Perfect. All right, let's look at do while loop. We looked at while loop. Let's look at a do while loop. Similar to while loop, a do while loop will continue running until a stopping condition is met. One key difference is that no matter what, a do while loop will always run once. Instead of checking the condition before the code executes a block, the program in the block runs once and then checks the conditional statement. It will either stop or continue to execute until the condition is no longer true. Do while loops are good when a program should execute at least once, and then depending on the circumstances, continue to execute or stop. In your video game, you want to show that the start screen for at least one frame. If the user does not hit next, you want the start screen to continue to appear until they do. So bool start game equals false, do show start screen while not start game, right? In this example, we initialize a Boolean value start game to the start state false. The program runs once, showing the start screen for one frame, then checks to see if the player has started the game. If the player has yet to start the game, it will call show start screen again and continue to show the start screen until the player presses start. You decided to try to make another productivity tool. This time, you build a Pomodoro timer. When the timer finishes, an alarm will ring once. If you don't click the button to turn it off, the alarm will repeat until it's turned off. Write a program that plays the alarm once, and then if the button isn't clicked, it will repeat the alarm again. To simulate the alarm, you can print something like blar to the console. When working with loops, if the condition is never met, we'll end up with an infinite loop. When this happens, the program will never exit, stopping it from running anything else. To get out of the infinite loop, refresh the page, then inspect your code before running the program again. So in this code, we have a variable initialized, a Boolean variable named button click that is automatically set to the value true. So we want to say if we don't click the button, we'll turn it off. So we're going to create a do while loop. Again, we'll open that loop up while it's not being clicked. We're going to create a console.writeLine that says Blair. And then to get out of the loop, we'll do a while and not button click. And we'll see if this works. After the loop finishes, the program should print a message telling you to take a break, like time for a 5-minute break. So we'll exit the loop here, and we'll create a console.writeLine. You should take a 5-minute break. Perfect. For loop. What if we want our code to execute for a specific number of times? We can use a for loop for that. For initialization, stopping condition, iteration, statement. The for loop tells the computer how many times to repeat the instructions using the for keyword and 3 expressions inside of parentheses. Each of these expressions use what is known as an iterator variable, which is a variable that keeps track of how many times the program goes through the loop. These expressions are the initialization, where the loop begins, the stopping condition, the condition where that the iterator variable is evaluated against, and the iteration statement, used to update the iterator variable on each loop. The for loop is good when you know how many number of times you'd like to perform a task before you begin, like printing 3 copies of a document or inserting 8 rows into a table. In our video game, we want 10 flags to appear at the start of each level. Int I is equal to 0, I is less than 10, I++. When a computer receives this program, it sets the counter to 0 and executes the instructions in the body of loop, which in this case instructs the computer to display a flag. After each iteration, or one turn through the loop, the program advances the counter by 1, I++, and the process repeats until the counter reaches 10, meaning 10 iterations are complete and there are 10 flags on the screen. For your next tool, you want to create a template for your weekly team meetings. Rather than clone a new week each one, you decide to make them all at once. Write an empty for loop that runs once for each week in your 16-long week program. So we're going to put it in the main here. We're going to create a for loop. And again, we're going to remember our syntax here. And we want it for 16 weeks. So we're going to set I equal to 0, I less than 16, and then I++. And it actually appears that we will make sure that we categorize I as an int variable. And instead of commas, we are going to use semicolons, which is quite interesting, but that is what we are going to do. Write an empty for loop. Okay, so we've wrote an empty for loop here. Inside the loop, call the create template method. It takes a number as a parameter that represents what week the project is in. Generate at the top. Say week with X representing what week it is. It takes a number as a parameter. Actually, I believe we just do I, and that should be good. Missed something here. Make sure that create template is called 16 times. So, am I missing something? I don't think I am here. It's in the main argument, which is good. Let's check the hint here. To call a method with a parameter, make sure to provide an argument that matches the parameter type in the method signature. Int week. Okay, let's check the view solution because I feel like we did what we wanted to do. I guess we could do int +1, and maybe that will generate the actual week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Yeah, that's what it was. So it was starting at week 0, which it didn't really like, so we're doing week 1 instead. For each loop. There's one more way to give looping instructions to a computer. We define a sequence of values and tell the computer to repeat the instructions for each item in the sequence. For each, type element in sequence statement. The for each loop is used to iterate over collections such as an array. In our video game, we want to play a melody. We can do that by iterating through a list of individual notes, playing one after the other. Here's an example array of notes. And the loop would look like for each string note in melody, play music note. The sequence we used was an array, but we can use other similar data structures. The umbrella term for those is collection, so we can also call for each loops collection loops. Use this loop when you need to perform a task for every item in a list or when the order of things must be maintained. In this case, both are important. A note must be placed for each item in the list, and the order of them is essential to the musical pattern. Okay, in the instructions, now you want to create a to-do list to keep track of your tasks. Write an empty loop that will iterate over each item in your to-do array. So let's go to our main string here, and we'll do a for each loop with the string task in to do. It wants to write an empty loop first, so we'll do that to start. Now inside of the loop, call the create to do item. To do item. Oop, item. And we're gonna put in task in it. As you can see, there is a string item, so we'll put task into there, and hopefully now when I click run here, we should be able to see respond email, make wireframe, program feature, and fix bugs. Cool. Comparing loops. You may have noticed that there are a lot of similarities between the different types of loops, and you are right. We just showed you how you can use a for each loop to iterate through an array, but we can also use a for loop to iterate through an array. As you can see, we have an array called items here. For I equals 0, I less than items.length, I++, console.writeLine items, I. We could even write a complicated while loop that starts at a counter of 0, then compares that counter to the length of the items array. If the counter is less than the array, the loop will continue. Otherwise, it will stop looping through the statements, and the program will move on to the next line of code. Since a for each loop does the same thing as the other two but is more concise, it's less prone to errors and the better choice in this circumstance. In general, while loops are good when you know your stopping condition, but not when you know how many times you want a program to loop or have a specific collection to loop through. Do while loops are only necessary if you definitely want something to run once, but then stop if a condition is met. For loops are best if you want to run something specific number of times rather than a certain condition, and for each loops are the best way to loop over an array or other collection. Now, you may want to build an app that blocks websites, so you find some code online and copy paste it into your text editor. You notice that a while loop, it uses while loop to iterate through website array, but you know a better way to do that. Rewrite the loop so it uses a loop that is better suits the objective. So, it wants us to use a for each loop, and so what we will do is we will again just replace this with a for each. I'm going to just quickly relaunch the page as I am getting a little bit of a lag there. So we'll go down again to the instructions so we can see them. So we'll do a for each loop and open that up real quickly. Perfect. Let's make sure that actually we're looking fine. Perfect. So inside of the loop, we want to do the console dot write line, and before we end that off, we're going to try and grab our variable. So it is a string, so I'm going to say string website in websites. We're going to print line each website. And hopefully we did that correctly. And as you can see, the for loop, type or namespace definition expected. A for each loop should not use the counter variable, delete it from your program. So it wants us to just get rid of this int counter variable, which is fine. We can do that, and let's rerun it and see if that works. Didn't end up doing it. It said print all the websites, which I thought I did. Let's take a peek at the solution here and see what I'm missing. It looks like I'm missing the end here, so it must be a little bit of a spacing error. We have that one, and let's try running it one more time here and see what happens. And now it ends off correctly. I guess somehow I added in a bracket there. My mistake. All right, jump statements. There are a few keywords that we can use to add further control flow to our loops. Typically, they work with a series of nested loops where one loop is written entirely within the body of another loop. These keywords are often used to limit while loops and prevent them from creating infinite loops. Break. At any point within a loop block, you can end it by using the break keyword. If player is alive equals false, break, right? You've already seen the break keyword. It's the same keyword used in switch statements. So if you remember, switch statements are used to execute a code block from a list of conditions if a condition is true. Continue. The continue keyword is used to bypass portions of code. It will ignore whatever comes after it in the loop, and then we'll go back to the top and start the loop again. So for int I equals 0, I less than or equal to 10, I plus plus. Excuse me. If I is less than 9, continue. If not, console.writeLine. This will be skipped until I is no longer less than 9. Here, the program starts in the for loop, then hits the if statement. Since there is a continue in the if statement, it will bypass the console.writeLine statement until the condition is true. In the if statement is no longer true. So while the loop starts at 0, nothing will print to the console until I is equal to 9. Finally, return. The return keyword is another way to exit a loop. Specifically, loops are used within a method. When a return is used within a loop, it breaks out of the loop and returns control to the point in the program where the method was called. Note, you should only use return if you need to exit a method because it will break out of all loops. If you only want to break out of one loop and not exit a method, use break. Okay, let's take a peek at the instructions here. You've decided to go back to the Pomodoro application. This time you don't want the alarm to ring endlessly. Once it rings 3 times, it should shut off even if the button has not been clicked. Create a variable that will keep track of how many times the alarm has gone off. Note that we have temporarily set the initial value of button click to true. Otherwise, running the code as it is would result in an infinite loop. You'll update the starting value of button click in a later step. Okay. So the way that I will do it is adding an additional statement within. I can do an if statement. So what I will do is create a new variable, an int variable called counter, set that equal to 0. And then while in the loop, I will make sure that the counter gets added to. And then outside of the counter, if counter is greater than or equal to 3, we will open that up now and do break. And hopefully that works. Inside the do while loop, increase the count every time the alarm goes off. I think I have made this, may have done it a little bit out of order there. The program should break out of the loop if the variable reaches 3. Write a statement to check if the variable has reached 3. When it does, have it break out of the loop. Okay, so I did all of them. Now you can update the starting value of button click to false. So now if I do false up here, we should see 3 blares, hopefully, and then we break out of it. Yep, we see blare, 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 and we click out. Review. Well done. In C#, loops are most commonly used because they save time, reduce errors, and are easy to read. Being comfortable with each type of loop will make you a better programmer. In review, a loop is a structure in programming where the instructions are written once, but a computer can execute them multiple times. Each execution of those instructions is called an iteration. While loops repeat until a condition changes. Do while loops execute once, at least, and then repeat until a condition changes. For loops repeat for a specified number of times. For each loops repeat for each item in a collection, and jump statements like break, continue, and return are used to add additional control flow to loops. Now that you know a few things about loops, try writing a program that blah, 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 blah. Try that if you'd like. Let's take a peek at what's next. I believe we have a bit of a test here. So 12 questions. This is going to be about arrays and loops. So if you are a little confused on some of the questions, perhaps about arrays, might be a good idea to go back and look at arrays. So let's define breeds as an array of strings. So we're going to make a string with the brackets there that signifies an array. And then we will do new and string, and hopefully, yep, that looks good. Perfect. What will be printed to the console? So we have a main function here. We have an array that says a list of names here. Now we'll do a for each loop, and it should print out the name plus a space afterwards. So we should see Ursula space K dot space LE space Gwyn. So I'm liking this one right here, and that is correct. Create a do while loop that makes the player dance until a key pressed is true. So we will create a do while loop and while that makes the player dance. So player.dance while until key pressed is true. Let's check that. Perfect. We got it. What is an array? Is it a variable? Is it a type of loop, a statement, or a list of ordered data? I'm liking a list of ordered data. Define an empty array of integers with length of 10. So we are going to do kind of like this. Perfect. What is the index of give? So we have a array here called lyrics, and it has a bunch of string variables in it. Never going to give you up. We're getting rickrolled here. What is the index of give? We remember that all arrays are 0 indexed. So we're going to start at 0, 1, 2. So give is going to be at the 2 spot. Perfect. Why will this code throw an error? So we have a main function here with an array called answers that are bool variables. When I check into that, it looks like all of them are bool. We have false, false, and true. Now we're going to go for I is equal to 0. I is less than answers.length, I++. We're trying to do answers.console.writeLine. Let's check the answers here. I don't see an immediate one, but maybe they will do an answers. So length is not a valid property in an array. I believe it is. The type for variable I is undefined. That is something that I am definitely liking here as an answer. This is an infinite loop. I don't believe it is. And this loop will try to access an index out of the bounds of the array. I believe it's because we have not defined in this for loop that I is an int variable. Usually it's I is int as you add to it when we do I++. Create a while loop that prints out every number in the array. So we have int j is equal to 0. So while j is less than lap times dot length, console.writeLine lap times dot j, and then j++. And perfect. When this code is run, how many times will bzz be written into the console? Public. We have a main function here, or main method, I should say. For int z is equal to 2, z is less than 3, z++. It looks like bzz will be ran just one time into the console, right? As we have it starting at z is equal to 2. We want z is less than equal to 3, or less than 3. That only happens one time because when we do z++, we have 3, and 3 is not less than 3. 3 is just 3, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, 1. Correct the first time through the loop, z is 2, then z is incremented to 3. The loop exits because this no longer satisfies the condition that z is less than 3. I think they said it a little bit better than I did. What is a data structure? A type of array, a code that defines a loop, a variable, or an organized way to manage and access information. I'm liking the last answer there. And we can go on to the next one. Let's define an array of doubles without using new. So I will have a double with the brackets. That signifies that we are doing an array. And if we put in a list of those doubles, we should be good. In this code, what is an element? So an element is going to be anything that's inside of the actual array. So I'm going to say z is the element. Correct, the array has one element, the character z. So we got 100% on that quiz. Let's continue learning here. I believe we'll have a couple of projects here at the end with arrays and loops. I believe we might have 2 projects. Yeah, we have 2 projects here. So by 6 a.m. on Sunday, your team's project is nearly finished. The object of your affection, the name's a work in project, is getting attention from other teams in the hackathon. With 1 day left, they're getting desperate. To steal your project idea, your competitors have been reading your team emails. As the team's C expert, or C# expert, you have been asked to write a cipher, a tool to encrypt text, making it unable to read to other teams. You decided to implement the Caesar cipher, which was used by the Roman Empire to encode military secrets. To use a cipher, draw the alphabet in a circle like so. Take every letter of your message and shift it 3 places to the right. For example, A becomes D, B becomes E, C becomes F, and attack becomes D, W, W, D, F, N. Your teammates can decrypt the message by reversing the process, shift each letter 3 places to the left. For this project, you'll need to convert strings in a character with to-char array. You'll also need to convert arrays of characters to string with .join, or the join function. Let's get started. You'll build the encryption tool as an interactive console app. First, ask the user for a secret message and store the result in a variable. So the first thing we are going to do is do a string variable called secret word. I'll just make it actually secret phrase, right? We're going to set that equal to a console.readline. And we'll save that. Oh, sorry. It wanted it to be secret message. Didn't read that. Secret phrase, secret message, whatever you'd like. There we are. Convert the captured string to an array of characters. Store the results in a new variable called secret message. Okay, it did want me to do that. So we'll change this. Sorry about that. We'll change this back to secret phrase. Then create a new empty array of characters to hold the encrypted message. It should be named, or convert the captured string into an array of characters. So we're going to have to use to-char array. You'll need to convert a string of arrays to character strings. You need to convert strings to an array of characters with to-char array. Okay, sorry about that. So we are going to do char with the brackets to signify that it is a why am I blanking? An array. We need to signify that it is an array with those brackets there. We're going to set it equal to secret phrase dot to char array. And we'll save that. Now, we'll create a new empty array of characters to hold the encrypted message. It'd be named encrypted message and have length equal to the length of secret message. Create a new empty array of characters to hold the encrypted message. It should be named encrypted message. So we'll create another new character array called encrypted message, and we'll set it equal to new char, and then a length of secret message dot length, and I'm hoping that works. Yeah, hoping that works. Click save. Hopefully that works. Encrypt. We'll need to perform encryption for every letter in the message. Create an empty for loop that loops through each character of secret message. So we're going to create an empty for each. I guess we can do. I would do a for each method, and we would do something like char letter in secret message. It wants me to do a for loop, even though I don't really want to do a for loop. So let's instead, I suppose, do a for loop here. The iterator variables should be I, so we'll do an int I is equal to 0. It should continue as long as it is less than I is less than secret message dot length, and then it should go up by 1. So we've created the empty one so far. Within the loop, access character position I in the secret message and store it in the variable. Within the loop, access the character at position I in the secret message array and store it in a variable. Okay, that's fine. We'll say char letter is equal to secret message indexed at I. Find the position of the character in the alphabet array using array.indexOf. Store the value in a variable. So it wants me to find the position of the character in the alphabet array. And I would assume in this loop. So store that in a variable. We'll say int index of char is equal to array.index of letter. And then we'll add 3. And now we'll do index of char plus 3. And find the new encrypted character by getting the character in the alphabet array with that new position. When I do the index of, I want to say that you have to have 2. Yeah, exactly. So when I do index of, we actually want to do alphabet letter, index of char plus 3. Plus, we'll say plus equals 3, obviously. And then we'll do add the encrypted character. Okay. Okay. So then we're going to do a array adding. So we'll do basically, we'll find the new index of, I'll try a new one called index of encrypt char, right? And we'll set that at the array.index of, and we will do alphabet and letter. And yeah, actually, let me think about this. So alphabet and then index. Okay, let's take a peek here at what we're doing. So first of all, we're looping through the secret message length, and in each one we're creating the first variable, which is letter, and that letter is just equal to the secret message length and the first index, right? So in that, we'll grab a character, let it be the letter D. Then we're creating a new variable called index of char at array index of alphabet and this. So this will give us a number. And then we can use that index of char by just setting it equal to alphabet. That's right. Okay. So if we just do now index of encryption character, actually what we're going to want to do instead, this is what's actually getting me here. We'll do a char variable called encrypt char, and we'll keep that camel case going that we've been doing. We'll do alphabet at the index of char. Okay, a little bit of a slip up there, but we should be good now. That encrypted character then needs to get saved. Find the new encrypted character by getting the character in the alphabet array with that new position, and then add that encrypted character to the array. So now we will do encrypted message at position I is equal to encrypt char. And that should hopefully work. Store the character at the index, the iterator variable. Let's test it. Your loop is now finished. We need to convert our array of encrypted characters back into a readable string that we can print to the console. Convert the character array to a string using string.join and print to the console. Convert the character array to a string using string.join and print to the console. You need to convert our array of encrypted characters back into a readable string that we can print to the console. Okay. So now we will exit the loop and we will do string.join, and in string.join, if we roll up, this is a new function for us. We will do first what we want to join with. In this case, nothing, right? We just don't want even a space there, and then we'll do our message. So we'll save this to a variable called encrypted finished, or we'll call it encrypted string is equal to, and this will be a string variable called encrypted string.join. We'll do that, and then we'll do encrypted message. And I got a Discord notey. Run your app and try these messages and print it to the console. So then after this, we'll do a console.writeLine encrypted string. Now, I am very much expecting to see some mistakes here because it's rare that you see code run quite perfectly right as we start. Okay, the name encrypted message does not exist in the current context. So, encrypted. Let's see, I must have spelt it wrong or something like that. Encrypted message, right? We made a couple of little errors there. Let's save it and try it one more time here. Once it's saved, we'll do a .NET run. Let's see what next error we made. So actually, I should add before this, and I'll do a console.writeLine, and we'll say enter your secret phrase. So we'll save that and we'll do .NET run once more. Okay, so actually it looked like it worked pretty nicely. If we do .NET run one more time here, it should say something like enter your secret phrase. So if we do dmx monkey unhandled expectation, that's right, because we don't have spacebar. So we got into a little bit of an error there, and that's fine. Let's run it one more time, and this time we'll just do dmx, and we see CCC. Now that's not exactly what we end up wanting to see, so something isn't quite right, right? So let's try hello. That's the example. We actually do see KHOOR, perhaps because of the exclamation point, it's doing something a little interesting. If we do it one more time here, let's see what happens when we write citizen. And we are out of the exception. Run your app and try these messages. Not all of them might work yet. Yep, so I'm going to just relaunch the page to clear our console here. And I will scroll back down. So we've tested these out, and it does say that not all of them may work yet. What went wrong? When the program tried to encrypt the Z in citizen, it found its index in the alphabet 25. It looked up 3 spaces to the right, which would be alphabet 28, and threw an error because the alphabet is only 26 letters. We can wrap around by using the modulo operator on the line where you add 3 to the letter position, surround the expression letter plus position 3 with parentheses, and take the modulo of 26. Now the new letter position will never go past 26. So what it wants me to do is sort of wrap that in there, and we will do the modulo operator and divide it by 26. And we'll save that. And we now should try and test it and see what happens when we do .NET run and put in citizen. And so it's actually throwing me an error now because of this modulo operator. If we instead get rid of that equals, maybe we'll have a better time here. Let's see what happens. Call, increment, decrement, and new object expressions can be used in a statement. So it's not really liking that I put the modulo operator in there. Let's see what it wants us to do. Your expression should look like this. So instead we have something that's very different, which is fine. But let's, instead of divisible by this, we'll do alphabet.length. And instead of index of char here, we'll do int new index is equal to, and then we'll replace this with new index. Oop. And see how this ends up working for us. Let's enter our secret phrase, in this case being citizen, and we do end up seeing the code that we want. Well done, you built an automatic encryption engine that your team can use to communicate in secrecy. The hackathon is all but won. If we like, we can add some more methods and stuff like that. In this case, we are going to keep moving on, keep trucking forward, and look at a new project. True or false? You're taking an interactive quiz written in C#. Everything is going fine until you respond to this question. Eggplants are a type of berry. True or false? Yes. The application wasn't checking your input when it's found an X, but when you used an unexpected format, it couldn't ask the question again and marked your answer as wrong. By botanical definition, eggplants really are berries. In this project, you'll build a C# program that presents a quiz the right way, using array and loops. It will check the format of the user input and repeat the question if the format is incorrect. After the quiz is complete, it will check the user's response again against the correct answers and present a score. We'll need an array to hold the questions, answers, and user responses. First, declare and initialize a questions array of type string. The array contain your own true or false questions. So let's create a new string array called questions and set this equal to a couple of questions. What is DMX monkey's favorite food? Oh, I guess it's true or false question. So we can't do what is his favorite. Is DMX monkey's hat blue? Does DMX monkey likes to code? And finally, we'll do a false one here. DMX monkey is in love with C++. Perfect. So we've got our three options here for our questions. Let's do that. Declare an initialization array of type bool called answers. So we'll do that. We'll do an array of type bool. Answers equals to an array of true, true, and false. We'll save that up. Declare responses of type bool. It should be an empty array with the same length as the array. So we'll create another new bool array called responses. And we'll set this equal to a new bool array. That is the length of answers dot length. Perfect. Oop. To avoid any errors later on, write yourself an if statement that checks if the length of a questions array is not equal to the length of array. If they're not equal, write a warning to the console. Okay, so write an if statement based on the length of the, so if responses dot length is not equal to answers dot length, console dot write line error answers answers and responses length do not match. Boom. Okay, let's add our questions. Now we will loop through the questions array, asking each question and recording the user's response. First, create a variable asking index to create to keep track of the current asked question, set it equal to 0. So we'll add a new variable called asking index and set it equal to 0. Build an empty for each, one word for each, and we'll leave that closed for right now. In it, it wants us to iterate through each question in questions. So we'll say string question in questions. Oops, I hate hitting the hint on accident. Before we ask a question, we'll need to define some empty variables, declare these in the loop. So input, the text the user enters, is bool true. If the user input can be converted to a boolean, otherwise false. Input bool, the boolean version of the user's entry. Before we ask a question, the user's text input. String, actually it would be a bool. No, because when we do like that, so string input equals console dot write line. So for string questioning questions, so first it should print the current question, print true or false to the console, capture the user's input and input. Okay, so let's kind of build out using question part 7 and part 8 at the same time. So I'm going to do a console.write line that basically will print out true or false. And then I'm going to do a second console.write line that prints out the questions variable at the index asking index. Then it's going to ask the question. We'll put in the answer true or false. This should be actually a console.read line. Then in that input, true if the user's input can be converted to a boolean, otherwise false. Is bool, I don't get the is bool part there. Is bool is of type bool, input is of type string, we knew that. Input bool is of type bool. This question once in loop, capture the user's input and input. We want a couple more variables within the loop here. Let's make sure I'm not messing anything up. I'm not. So in this input, we have to ask a question, true or false. Then we ask the question. Then we do this. At the end, it should do asking index plus plus. And then that should be the end, but it wants to, no, let's check the user's input can be converted to type Boolean. Call the method boolean.tryParse to convert the user's input to Boolean type. Two arguments, a string value, and convert. Returns true if the consider it's false. I see, so there's two return. There's a return value that's the string of the value, and out bool result. Before we ask a question, we need to find some empty variables. Declare these in the input. Okay, so it wants us to now just, I'm just gonna create these variables is bool, and then bool input bool. Right now they're empty variables. That should be fine. That should be now fine. Now let's check if the user's input can be converted to a Boolean. Call the method boolean.tryParse to convert the user's input to a Boolean value. This method takes two arguments, a string value to convert and a bool variable to store the converted string. It returns true if the converted version was successful, false otherwise. Here is the method's signature. Use input and input bool as arguments and capture the return value in isBool. Okay, so what we're going to do after we have the, this console.readline, we're going to do a boolean.tryParse. In the first one, it's going to take the string of input. In the second one, it's going to take the out variable of input bool, which means these two I'm going to have to one at a time here. I'm going to move them up actually into the top of the for each. So now we're not going to get any errors there. And then capture the return value in isBool. So to do that, we'll just do isBool is equal to boolean.tryParse input out. At this point, the program asks each question once and doesn't do anything with the response. Run your code to make sure that everything is working fine. It should look something like this. So let's click save and see what happens. We're missing one on line 22. Wouldn't be a DMX Monkey video if we didn't forget a semicolon. Welcome to True or False. Press Enter to begin. True or false, is DMX Monkey's hat blue? True. True or false, DMX Monkey likes to code? True. True or false, DMX Monkey is in love with C# or C++? False. So it works. Let's look. We may have to ask the current question multiple times if the user responds in a wrong format. Create an empty while loop within the for each loop. It should continue looping while isBool is false. While isBool is equal to false, continue. If the user does not respond with true or false, we'll need to ask for a proper response again within the while loop. print please print our console.writeLine. Please respond with backslash true or I might not actually have to do this for just the single one, but I'm already committing, so okay. Okay, let's run it one more time. Oh! Infinite loop. We have created an infinite loop. False. Okay, so you saw what an infinite loop does. That was not great. We want to please respond with true or false. Store the user's value. And in this case, now we're going to do the same thing. Where do we do string input equals console dot read line. Okay. Should this all be inside the... okay, yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. Let's try again. A local parameter named input cannot be declared in this scope because that name is used in enclosing local scope to define a variable or parameter. It's inside of this. I think it's because we're redefining it there as string. It thinks I'm making a new variable. Yep. See, now we're in a bit of a sticky situation. Because now if I do console.readline, I'll do this now. And it's loading for quite a long time down there. 12 of 22. Damn! Okay, uh-oh, we're screwed. Let's instead relaunch the page. We've saved it. We do .NET run. True or false, Tima? Okay, we built the code correctly. Okay, so at this point, your while loop is complete. It should repeatedly ask for user input until the user's input can be successfully parsed as a Boolean. Outside of the while loop, but inside of the for each loop, store the user's Boolean answer in responses and increment asking index by 1. So what we should do now is outside of the loop, we should put responses with the index of asking index, And we'll set that equal to input, and then increment it by 1. Okay. Well done. The asking part of the quiz is over. Test your code to make sure that the responses are being recorded correctly. Do this by printing out the value of responses at the end of the code outside of the loops. So that is the same for each loop. I'm going to actually try to get rid of some of those. Oh, executing index plus plus. Outside of this loop, we'll do a for each loop where we'll do bool response in responses console.write line, and we'll just put response. So now if we do .NET run, we should be able to spot and type string to bool in line 43. Responses asking index. Is bool is input bool. Instead of input, obviously, which is a string, we're going to set that equal to input bool. I am going to quickly relaunch the page so that my webcam doesn't mess with the console there. Let's scroll down once again here. Do a little .NET run. And welcome to true or false. Let's press enter. Is the hat blue? Yes. We'll answer with true. DMX Monkey likes to code. True. DMX Monkey is in love with C++. Let's say fall, F, false. And it should print out now true, true, false, which is exactly what it does, which is quite perfect. So that is the asking part of the quiz over. I'm going to relaunch the page one more time, again, just to clear the console so we don't have any lag when we're creating our scoring system. That is next. Now that the user has answered all the questions, we'll need to compare those responses to the answers array and count the number of correct responses. First, define a few variables. First, we'll define a variable. First, I'm actually just going to delete this for each. It's not something that's necessary to our code. We're going to define a few variables. Int scoring index and set that equal to 0. Score, count the number of responses. We'll say int score is equal to 0. And I think I set that equal to somehow. I don't know how I did that. Create an empty for each loop. For each. That iterates through each answer and answers. So bool answers, or answer in answers. Open that loop up. First, capture the responses matching the answer. Within the loop, use scoring indexes, access the element in responses, and store that value in a variable. So within the loop, use scoring index to access the element in responses. So we'll access the value responses. Have I been doing responses with a C? I think I have. I literally have been. Okay. This is bad. Responses. Responses. That's it. Okay. Responses with the index of answer. Or sorry. Shoot. Scoring index, and to access the element, and we'll call this one bool current response, just to denote what one we're actually on. Second, write out the user response and correct answer for each of the answers. It should look similar to this. Okay, so now we'll add the user score if the response. Okay, so we'll first do a console.writeLine, and we'll say one dot, oh, actually, let's do a $sign. Well, if we start out at index 0, why would that make sense? Set it to 0. I guess to access the thing. So we'll do scoring index +1 input, and we'll put our current response answer I feel like I should do the same thing where I'll have like an indexing system of the actual answers. We'll do the same thing. We'll create a Boolean variable called current answer equal to answers at the position of scoring index. Answers is equal to current answer. We'll say now, yep, it looks similar to that. We'll use an if statement that increments the score. So if current response is equal to current answer, we'll open that up and just do score plus plus. Score +1, right? Outside the if statement, but within each for loop, increment scoring index by 1. So now at the end, we'll increment scoring index ++. Save that. At this point, your for each loop should print out the user's response and answers and calculate a score. Outside of this loop, announce the user's score. It may look similar to this. So we know there's only possible 3 answers. Console.writeLine you got, and we are going to do some string interpolation. You got score out of 3 correct. So let's run it, see what mistakes we made. The name responses does not exist. And it's because I spelt it with a C. What line? 20. Line 20. Line 20. Let's do another .NET. Oh, let's save it first. Run a .NET run here. Is DMX Monkey's hat blue? True. True or false? DMX Monkey likes to code. False. DMX Monkey is in love with C++. That's got to be false. Input on question 1, our input was true. Answer is true. Input is false. Answer is true. Input is false. Answer is false. You got a 2 out of 3 correct. So that's that project complete. It looks like we did everything that they wanted us to do. There's some other stuff that you can try and troubleshoot, but I think we got everything correct. So we can now exit this survey and take a peek at what is up next. In the next episode of this, we are going to be learning about classes. So classes are very important, but in today's little lecture, we finished out the arrays and loops. Specifically, we finished loops, and then we did our arrays and loops quiz and 2 projects. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.